Dear friends, welcome to the Eastern Front channel. Today we are talking about the penal battalions and companies of the Red Army. To understand this issue, we turn to the memoir of a Soviet veteran who served in a penal company. Yefim Abelevich Holbrai served as the deputy commander of the 163rd Penal Company of the 51st Army. The veteran's memoirs are especially valuable since he was the son of an enemy of the people. His father was shot in 1937. This is a very detailed interview that covers all the most important and interesting details of the existence of these units. So let's start. I asked to join the penal company myself. A soldier, like an officer, doesn't choose his fate in war, where he will be sent, and you will go there. But when appointed to a position in a penal company, consent was formally required. The penal companies were created by Stalin's Order number 227 on 28 July 1942, known as the Order Not a Step Back, after the surrender of Rostov and Novocherkassk. There were 3 penal companies in each combined arms army. The air and tank armies didn't have their own penal units, and they sent their penal guards to the combined arms. There were 2 penal companies on the front line at the same time. In them, 1 or 2 people arrived daily from the neighboring regiments. Any regimental commander had the right to send a soldier or a sergeant to a penal company by his order, but not an officer. The attendant brought an extract from the order. Why were they sent to the penal company? Failure to comply with orders, cowardice in battle, insulting a senior boss, fight, looting or evil. The organization of the penal company is as follows. The company staff, 8 officers, 4 sergeants and 12 horses, is attached to an army reserve regiment and is slowly drinking trophies while waiting for replenishment. When an echelon of criminals arrives from the rear, 400 or more people, and the company immediately becomes a battalion, continuing to be called a company. The criminals are accompanied by convoy troops, who hand them over to us according to the act. We don't put our guards. This makes a bad impression, whereas the trust shown causes us some favor. Yes, there is a certain risk, but we are going for it. So what kind of people here? There are bandits, recidivist criminals, and those hiding from conscription, and deserters, and just thieves. It happened that the unjustly injured also arrived from the rear. Being late for work for more than 20 minutes was considered absenteeism. They were tried for that, and the term could be replaced by a penal company. A teenager arrived with one of the echelons, almost a boy, at least he seemed like that. On the way, the criminals took away his rations. He was so weak that he couldn't get out of the car on his own. They sent him to the kitchen. The term of imprisonment was replaced approximately in the following proportion: up to 3 or 4 years in prison, a month of a penal company; up to 7 years, 2 months; up to 10 years, there was no higher than this period, 3 months of a penal company. The officers who were demoted by the verdict of the military tribunal were also sent to the penal companies. If there were not enough officers of their own, it was from them that the missing platoon commanders were appointed. And these were not the worst commanders. They had a great desire to rehabilitate themselves. After the war, statisticians calculated the average life expectancy of a rifle platoon commander in an offensive is no more than a week. The penalty was removed on the first injury, or much less often after serving time. Sometimes, after the wounded, a petition was sent to the military prosecutor for the removal of a criminal record. This concerned mainly demoted officers. Very rarely, and as a rule, if the soldier from the penal platoon didn't leave the battlefield after being wounded or performed a feat, he was presented for a reward. We didn't know about the results of our petitions. There was no feedback. In some after-war movies, I saw an episode where the foreman beats, teaches the soldiers from the penal platoon, and even at the direction of the company commander. It's absolutely incredible that such a thing could actually happen. Every officer and sergeant knows that in battle they can be ahead of the offended soldier. And these guys are not the lambs of God. And they don't have wooden rifles in their hands. Another thing is that the company commander had the right to add the period of stay in the company, and for committing a serious crime to shoot. And there was such a case in our company. The penal guards themselves caught the deserter, shot him in front of the formation and buried him across the road, so that the memory of him would be erased. It's not easy to talk about it now, but then there was a different time and a different attitude to such things. Vladimir Karpov, a well-known writer, hero of the Soviet Union, who himself experienced the penalty company, writes that the officers of the penalty companies didn't go on the attack with the penalty guards. It's true and not true at the same time. If there are experienced commander from the penalty area, you don't have to go. And if not or over, we must go ourselves. For the most part, that's exactly what happened. Here is one of many examples of this. Two deputy company commanders, Senior Lieutenant Vasily Demyanenko and I, led the company into the attack. When the task was almost completed, I was wounded in the chest by shrapnel. I still remember my first thought about that moment. If I didn't fall, it means it's easy. Neither we nor the Germans went on the attack in droves as in the movies. The losses would have been too great. A rather rare chain is moving, running, and in some places crawling. In the attack, you try to keep a friend with your sight vision. Demyanenko was about 30 paces away from me, so that I staggered and jumped into the funnel. Ran up to me and said, "Where?" I silently point to the hole in the sheepskin coat. "Take it off." The whole dialogue is 2 words. He bandaged me up. The fragment grazed the pocket of the tunic, which contained a bundle of letters and photos from the rear. That's what saved me, otherwise the fragment would have gone through. In the medical unit, they grab this fragment by the tip peeking out from under the rib and pull it out. And I immediately returned to the company. How did I end up in the penal company? During the next reformation, I found myself in the officer reserve of the 51st Army, which was commanded by Lieutenant General Yakov Grigorovich Kreiser, after the war the General of the Army. Kreiser received the title of Hero of the Soviet Union in 1941, being the commander of the 1st Moscow Proletarian Division. It was my first time in the rear. I was struck by the huge number of idle officers of all ranks, with a business-like look, scurrying with and without folders. Is there really a job for all of them here? The closer to the front line, the fewer people there are. First, the rear, economic and special units, medical units, bigger artillery, and then smaller ones. Closer to the front line, mortars. You come to the front edge, and orphan feelings covers. Where have everyone gone? Boring. I don't know anyone, no one knows me. By the end of the week I heard that the deputy commander of the Army Penal Company had died, and I went to the personnel department. Don't rush to write me down as a hero, I'm not brave, rather the opposite, but I had already fought in the infantry and knew that there was no big difference between ordinary rifle companies and penal ones. Yes, penal companies are assigned to reconnaissance by combat, to break through the enemy's defenses or stand in the way of his offensive. And so, the ordinary rifle battalions are not assigned? It was in an ordinary rifle battalion of an ordinary rifle regiment assigned to reconnaissance by combat that I had to die. And when my consciousness was fading away in black despair, my comrade Sasha Kislichko saved me, who died the next minute. And all these years I have been painfully thinking, if he hadn't come to rescue me, would Sasha have stayed alive? So I didn't risk much, the son of the enemy of the people, except for the rifle battalion, I couldn't count on something better. But there are many advantages. First, penalty companies as a rule are not on the defensive. Infantry soldiers will understand me without details. Another advantage of the penal company was the absence of political workers, which all of them singly or en masse, in the lull between battles, when you want to write a letter or just relax, come to you to bore about the Komsomol meeting. No one will come to the penal company. They have enough worries of their own, and no one, especially at the front, will do more than they should. And we simply don't have a party or Komsomol organization. The commander of the Penal Company is equal in his rights to the commander of the regiment and is subordinate operationally to the division commander, to whom he will be assigned for a specific operation. This is included in the concept of separate, and the army is not up to us. They have more important things to do. There was, however, a case when a major from the political department arrived and said, "Could you fed your penalty soldiers wars?" The commanders complained. When I try to threaten a soldier with a penal company, some of them say to me, "Well, send me, they feed well there." And it is. An ordinary company receive allowances in a battalion in a regiment from divisional warehouses, and a division from army ones. Karamzin, a Russian writer of Tsarist time, also noticed, if you want to express in one word what's being done in Russia, you should say they are stealing. It's not necessary to think that anything has changed in more than 200 years. Our foreman receives his allowance directly from the army depots. However, they cheated him too. But we are not sad, and we will bring some of the trophies. The foreman received the products completely and of good quality, undiluted vodka. Officers will bring long sheepskin coats, and the uniforms of the penalty soldiers will not receive the last term, but quite decent. In addition, we have unaccounted horses instead of 12 horses, a small herd. If necessary, we slaughter a young horse, and we have meat. We will plow the garden for someone. And of course, one more important factor. In addition to the eternal Russian pity for the sufferer prisoner, every rear quartermaster was always afraid of someday rattling into the penalty area. There were other advantages: a 1.5 salary, accelerated length of service. However, I almost didn't feel it. Sometimes we were supervised by the SMERSH army department, but I don't remember them getting in the way or visiting us often at all. They had a lot of things to do in the Baltic states. Closer towards the end of the war, when no one wanted to die, 3 people deserted at once. The company commander and I appeared in front of a member of the military council of the army, who in a popular form with a bad language explained it what we, in his opinion, were, took out of some folder award list of the Order of Alexander Nevsky for the commander, and on the Order of the Patriotic War of the First Degree at me. With an elegant movement he tore them up and threw them under the table, at the same time informing us that the assignment of the next military ranks to us was delayed, and already in the back through, fine and shoot. We didn't find deserters, and we were very sorry that we didn't find them and didn't shoot then. Now I don't regret it. There were many other excesses for which they didn't pat on the head at all. The concept of the penal battalions has been established in the literature. Battalion, it sounds proud. There is something solemn and sad in the word itself, some inner rhythm and romance. But in reality, penal companies are going into battle. There were also penal battalions. This is completely different. In the personnel department, they looked at me with some surprise. "We have amateurs working there," I answer. "And I will be an amateur. I will not go to the rear." I received the order and thought about it. It would be necessary to come to the company with something. The choice here is small. I knocked on the peasant's house, blushing, and handed out the soldier's underwear. The hostess brought out a bottle of moonshine, plugged with a paper stopper. I didn't carry a duffel bag. The bottle doesn't fit into a field bag. I stuffed it into the pocket of my overcoat and put a glove on the suspiciously protruding neck. I quickly got to the front line by passing cars. The mortar man, standing at the edge of the forest, pointed to a lone tree in the field, the command post of the company commander, and said, "You don't go there until the evening. This is the place the sniper is aiming at." I washed up. It's still far from evening. Let me, I think, take a chance, and pulled as hard as I could. Dear friends, that's all for today. If you like this video, please leave your comments and I will make other episode about the penal battalions. It was Tim and the Eastern Front channel. See you.